Most homebuyers in the US regret the home they bought. And in Minneapolis, it's probably even higher. Buyer regret is rising so fast in 2026, and the 5 mistakes causing it. My team has sold over 2,000 homes across the market, and I've seen every one of these mistakes happen in real time. The good news is that all of them are avoidable. Watch all the way through because the last one can cost you the most. The payment felt manageable. They ran the numbers, it worked, and they moved forward. What they didn't model is everything that comes after that number. And in Minneapolis, that gap between the mortgage and the real monthly cost of owning is where budgets start to really fall apart. So let's walk through what the full picture actually looks like. Property taxes hit homeowners hard this year, with the Minnesota Department of Revenue estimating an average increase of about 6.9% statewide. But that average hides what a lot of people are actually seeing. Many homeowners got hit with double-digit increases, with annual tax bills jumping by more than $1,000 in a single year. That's money that was never in the original budget. Then there's homeowners insurance, and this one caught a lot of people off guard as well. Minnesota's home insurance rates went up about 35% last year, the highest increase in the country. That's roughly $75 extra a month showing up in your escrow on top of everything else that already went up. And that one hurts, especially when you weren't expecting it. Now add HOA dues if you're in a condo or townhome. Those can jump hundreds of dollars without very little warning. Add utilities, lawn care in the summer, snow removal in the winter, which isn't optional here. You've got 24 hours to clear your sidewalk after a snowfall, and hiring someone to handle that has gotten more expensive too. And then there's maintenance reserve, because if your home was built in 1924, skipping that isn't an option either. When looking at this, keep this full cost picture in mind as we get into bidding wars, because the buyers who stretched to win had the least room to absorb any of this. Stay with me. Now for single income households, this is where things got risky, and there's no second income to catch a surprise. When any of these numbers move unexpectedly, and in 2026 a lot of them did, what felt comfortable at closing can start to feel tight within 12 months. Bottom line, buyers who only ran principal and interest didn't have the full picture from day one. The mortgage was never the whole story, and a lot of people didn't realize that until they were already living there. If you're nodding along right now, maybe because some of this sounds familiar, this is the kind of thing I help Minneapolis buyers work through before it becomes a problem. If you're in the process of buying and want to make sure your fully monthly cost actually makes sense for your life, reach out to me directly. My contact information is in the description below. Now, let's keep going. You can replace a furnace, you can renovate a kitchen, but you cannot change your zip code without selling and starting over. And in a market where moving costs money, that's not a real option for most people. What happened to a lot of buyers is this: they chose neighborhoods that looked right on a map or photographed beautifully in listing photos, but didn't match how they actually live Monday through Friday. Location regret is one of the most common forms of buyer's remorse, and it's the hardest to fix once you're in it. And Minneapolis has some super specific friction points that don't show up in any listing. Winter commute times are the first one, because driving your route in September is a completely different experience from driving it in February after an overnight snowstorm. The distance is the same, but the time and the stress are not. A neighborhood that feels conveniently located in the fall can feel genuinely isolating once the snow starts. Parking is another one, and it deserves its own beat here. A lot of Minneapolis neighborhoods have limited off-street parking, and during snow emergencies, the rules change block by block. The city runs a 3-day plowing schedule during declared emergencies that dictates exactly where you can and cannot park. If you don't know the system, you learn it the expensive way: your car gets towed. After major winter storms in recent years, many residents have woken up to find their vehicles missing. The tow fee, impound release, and parking citation can run upward of about $350 for a single mistake. Not the end of the world, but super annoying, and it adds up fast. And when we get into the hype-driven buying side of this later on, I'll show you exactly how the wrong neighborhood decision and the wrong mindset feed each other, so stick around. Now, add noise levels near busy corridors, proximity to school boundaries, whether there's a daycare within a reasonable drive, and how close the nearest grocery store actually is. And suddenly, the house that looked perfect on paper starts creating daily friction that compounds over time. The fix is to drive test the neighborhood before you write an offer. Not just on a Saturday afternoon in October when everything feels like a movie set. Visit on a Tuesday night. Drive the actual commute during rush hour. If you can, get out there during a snowstorm and walk the street parking situation. None of this is glamorous, but all of it matters. And when we look at what older Minneapolis homes can hide from buyers who skip their due diligence, that's where things get really expensive really fast. Imagine buying what feels like a dream, a Craftsman bungalow. Original hardwood floors, all that character you just don't get with new construction. And then 6 months later, realizing that charm came with a price tag nobody warned you about. That's the reality for a lot of buyers around here right now. The city has some of the oldest residential neighborhoods in the region, and a lot of what's on the market was built in the 1920s and 1930s. That character is a big part of why these neighborhoods feel so special, but it also comes with issues that usually don't show up until you're already living there. The freeze-thaw cycle here is no joke. Every winter, the ground contracts. Every spring, it expands, and over time, that takes a toll. Foundations crack, roofs wear out faster, and older drainage pipes fail. A failing chimney on a 3-story historic home can run well into the tens of thousands of dollars to fully address. These are rare problems, and they're just part of owning a home that's been standing for close to 100 years in a climate like this. But during the most competitive stretch of this market, buyers waived inspections to win deals. Others had inspections but brushed off the red flags because they didn't want to lose the house. Both groups may now be dealing with thousands of dollars in repairs with no cushion left because they used everything to close. This hits first-time buyers the hardest. You stretch to get into the home, you celebrate at closing, and then a few months later, something major breaks. The boiler goes out, water shows up in the basement after heavy rain, and ice dam damage shows up on the roof that you didn't catch. And without reserves, every one of those turns into a real problem real fast. In this kind of market with this kind of housing stock, an inspection is how you protect yourself financially. If the report comes back with red flags, your job is to deal with them head on, negotiate credits, ask for repairs, or simply walk away, because the alternative is taking on those costs yourself at the worst possible time. Now that takes us to the buyers who did everything right on paper and still ended up in trouble. I know, winning felt good. That moment where your agent calls and says your offer got accepted after 2 or 3 losses feels like relief and a win at the same time. But what comes after that is where the things start to change. Studies show a significant share of buyers felt financially stressed after closing, and in the Twin Cities, especially in competitive neighborhoods with fully renovated homes, buyers were going all the way up to the top of their pre-approval just to get a deal locked in. And in that moment, that felt worth it. Then everything else hit. The tax increases, insurance going up, utility costs climbing. Xcel Energy raised rates in both 2025 and 2026, and older Minneapolis homes tend to feel that more than newer builds. And on top of that, everyday costs kept going up too. Without any room in the monthly budget, there was nowhere to absorb it. So what already felt tight at closing starts to feel really heavy pretty quick. There's another layer to this that doesn't get talked about enough. Most of these buyers chose a home that worked for their life at that moment, and then life shifted. A smaller yard that felt perfect for 2 people starts to feel cramped once kids are in the picture. A layout that felt open when you bought it at 28 can start to feel tight when you're working from home and hosting family during the holidays. And the house stops fitting your lifestyle. But after stretching to win with savings drained and a higher rate locked in, moving up isn't really an option. So now you're in a home that doesn't work the same way anymore, and that pressure builds over time. These are things you don't see in a listing. They're not in the photos or the square footage, but they shape what daily life actually feels like. And if you're stretching to win, they can start to feel hard to get away from. So let's get into why so many buyers ended up here in the first place. Of all 5 mistakes on this list, this one is the most preventable. And in a lot of ways, it's what sits underneath the rest of them. For years, the story around Minneapolis was that it was an affordable alternative to coastal markets. Your dollar went further here. The Midwest was a value and prices would keep climbing and reward early buyers quickly. That all made sense on the surface, and a lot of people made decisions based on that. But it didn't play out the way buyers expected. The pace of appreciation in Minneapolis has cooled going into 2026, which is good news for today's buyers, but the people who bought at the peak expecting fast appreciation are now in a very different spot than they planned to be. The equity they were counting on just isn't showing up on the timeline they needed. And social media honestly made this worse. Real estate content everywhere pushed aspirational decisions, the renovated bungalow, the up-and-coming neighborhood, the lifestyle tied to the address. But what it didn't show was the spreadsheet, the full monthly cost, the maintenance reserve, the insurance renewal, the tax bill. That stuff doesn't get posted, but it's what decides whether the house actually works or turns into a constant source of stress. Then there's the timeline piece, and this one is really specific. Buying for 3 years is completely different from buying for 7 or 15. You're looking at different neighborhoods, different property types, different resale setups. Buyers who didn't get clear on their timeline before they started touring are now realizing the house they picked doesn't match how they're actually living. Here's the version that's hitting hardest right now. New construction buyers who plan to sell in 2 or 3 years. The logic made sense at the time. Brand new, low maintenance, modern finishes, or easy resale. But now their home is one of dozens of similar units in the same development, competing directly with brand new inventory from the same builder. Decide your actual timeline, define your real non-negotiables, not the aesthetic wish list, but the functional requirements. And get clear on what winning looks like 5 years from now, not just on closing date. A purchase built around a clear plan will always outperform one built around a moment. The buyers who avoid regret in this market just ask better questions before they sign anything. And that's completely within your control. If you're planning to buy in Minneapolis and the surrounding metro and want to make sure your budget, your neighborhood, and your timeline are actually aligned, email me today. I've linked another video for you here where I break down why some Minneapolis homes sit on the market while others get multiple offers within 48 hours. That's the next video you should watch if you want to know which neighborhoods to focus on and how to win when you find the right one. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.